Alrighty, howdy folks. Chapter 5, Section 2, we are continuing with comparing alternatives, and the method is future worth. Let's try to understand this future worth thing. Cool. The future worth is the single sum equivalent at the end of planning horizon of the value of all cash flows, right? There are a whole bunch of things happening in the cash flow diagram. We'll say, okay, forget about all these different things. Tell me what is the future value, future worth of all these different things. Give me one number, right? That that is the future worth. And apparently, psychologically, we tend to think future worth as a good way of choosing from various options. And the way I'm trying to motivate that is, for instance, if you're asked to invest $200 a month that earns under the interest of 12% per year compounded annually, starting at the age of 25 years for 40 years, we may not be that impressed by the proposition, right? I'm picturing you. You're going to graduate, and pretty soon you're going to become an engineer. And you start to make money, but now that for the first time in your life you're making really good money, you would want to just have fun, do all kinds of fun things. That's natural. Guilty as charged. But then some old guy like me walks up to you and says, son, yeah, I know you're having fun and all this and blowing your money away, but tell you what do you think about $200 a month? What? $200 a month for what? Well, there's this thing that earns an interest of 12% per year. All you need to do is $200 a month. That's it. Would you invest that? 200. Yeah, that's a piece of cake. I mean, I go to a bar and spend 60, $80 every day. So the whole month, 200, that's not a big deal at all for me, you say. It's a good. But then you're not quite, what good does that do? Just $200 a month. And how long do you want me to do this? Oh, for 40 years. You're a kid, so. And then I'll say, the reason you need to do that is if you were to do this, guess what's going to happen? This is how much money you will have at 65 years of age if you do that. Uh, so let's do the calculation. A is $200 uniform series, and interest rate is 12% per year. So per month, it will be 0.01. And the total number of interest periods are 40 years times 12 per year. So 480. And so when we use our good old formula and project all of this to the future, what is it going to be? A whopping $2.35 million. I don't know about you, maybe you're so rich it don't make a difference to you, 2.35, but it's a big amount of money for somebody like me, right? So this is the reason future worth stuff is really a good way of convincing people. And also, tomorrow when you become an engineer and you have a project in mind that you want to do, and this is the kind of thing you want to say to your bosses. Yeah, there will be some initial investment, boss, but the thing is, the future worth of this is I have calculated all of this, and future worth of this is we're going to be making like $15 million in the next 5 years at the end of 5 years, and they'll be like, "What did you say? 15 millions at the end of 5 years? All right, talk to me more, right?" But then psychology is so important. But then if you're talking about spending on something, don't give the future cost of it, which will be a much larger amount. Instead, give the present cost. Every year we're going to be spending $10,000 on this one. Every month we'll be spending $10,000 on this one if we do this thing. Okay, well, how much what's it going to cost me? So don't give a future cost. Don't find a future cost of all this. Instead, give the present cost, which will be less, right? Someone who knows, of course, knows the math, knows that, yeah, this, yeah, tell me what is the future cost. But you can at least fool them for a little while. Anyway, precisely due to this effect, many decisions are based on the future worth. I got this problem, simple, silly one. Future worth, negative 5,000 projected to the future, and 1,200 annual things. Find the present value by multiplying by this factor, then eventually project it to the future. Or alternatively, you could cancel these two things and simply say 1,200 times this over zero point 0.1, right? Good. And what else is happening? There's a 2,000 in the future already, so that you don't need to do anything to it. Just add it directly. It's a positive one. Yeah, also notice the negatives and the positives. And that turns out to be $248.70. Since the future worth is greater than zero, this investment option is better than the default do nothing option, right? Cool. Next, we had this problem before. Let's try to approach it in a different way. So this is the one where we had, if you read the problem, you then try to draw a CFD of this one, cash flow diagram for this. This is what it looks like. $100,000 initial payment, right? That's what the cost would be. But you borrow 25,000 from the bank, one quarter of this 100,000, which is 25. That you need to pay in three payments at 15% rate, right? Three equal payments. So that's what this LP is, loan payment. And when you do that, you save 55,000, but you would pay a technician 25,000. So every year, this is the cash flow, right? And then there's a $5,000 salvage value. I added it at the end. Cool. The whole thing is, what is the future worth of this investment? And what is the decision rule for judging the attractiveness of investments based on future worth? The answer to that is simple. If the future worth is positive, that's a good idea. If it's negative, bad idea. Do nothing is better. Should the new computer system be purchased? Okay, let's do this. So, first order of business is to find what the loan payment is based on the 15% interest rate. And 25,000 that you borrowed at t equals 0 equals how many equal payments for 3 years? 10,949. Good. Now, what is the future worth of all this with LP this being this? First, I'm trying to find the present value of all these things. The negative 100,000, this one, plus 25,000, the one you got from the bank, and these three LPs projected to the front. But then, as we are projecting these things to the front, I mentioned this last time, worth repeating. Why do you need to do that? Isn't this already equal to 25,000? It is equal to 25,000 if the interest rate is 0.15, the one that bank charged. But in our cash flow, we are using our minimum attractive rate of return of 18%. So this projected to t equals 0 will not equal 25,000. Cool. In other words, had this been 0.15, all of these 0.18s had been 0.15. Yeah, then 25,000 and this 25,000 minus all of this would be just 0. But since it is not, That's not going to be 0, so we need to do that. And then once the stuff inside the parenthesis is all present costs, I'm projecting it to t equals 5 by multiplying by 1 plus 0.18 to the 5. And finally, there is a 5,000 in the future. We will add, no, not finally. Okay, the 55,000 minus 25,000 uniform series of payments. Find the present value and then project it to the future. Now, finally, the salvage. If you do that, that turns out to be negative 96,421.77. And so the decision rule is based on future worth is, if future worth is greater than 0, accept, otherwise reject. Since this is negative, you should not purchase the computer system. Do nothing is a better option. Cool. All right. Okay, so with this, all I'm trying to say is we did the same problem, but we calculated annual worth. And that turned out to be a negative quantity of negative 897. Guess what? If you use this as annual and figure out what the projected value of this at t equals 5, that is, find the future of these uniform payments, this 897.46 will give you exactly this one. So instead of going through all of this, if you wanted future worth, we could have taken from the previous problem this negative 897.46 and then figured out based on this the future value. So like for instance, these are uniform payments, right? Instead of 55,000 minus 25,000, if we had put minus 897.46 and then these factors are exactly the same, go ahead and punch it to calculator. That'll turn out to be negative 96. We would have saved so much more time. But I have no regrets. Let's do what we are supposed to do. Okie doke. Oh, I like this problem. Nadine has patented her invention. Nadine. Is that how you pronounce that? The Indian in me would have said Nadine. Nadine has patented, I think, patented. Patent. Now I'm confused how to pronounce that word. Almost 40 years in America, still I don't know how to pronounce certain words the American way. Okay, she's offering a potential manufacturer 2 contracts for the exclusive right to manufacture and market her product. Plan A calls for an immediate single lump sum payment to her of $30,000. Plan B calls for an annual payment of $1,000 annual payment plus a royalty of 50 cents per unit sold. The remaining life of the patent is 10 years. Nadine uses a minimum attractive rate of return of 10% per year. What must be the uniform annual sales volume? How many should she sell? For Nadine, to be indifferent between the contracts based on a future worth analysis. To be indifferent means, plan A, plan B, what's the difference? They are both the same, man. To be able to say that, how much should be the sales volume? That's the question. And use a future worth analysis for this is what they're asking. For plan A, the future worth is what? What is the plan A? You get 30,000, a single lump sum amount. That's it, 30,000. Good. What is its future worth 10 years later? Simple. One multiply that by 1 plus 0.1. Our minimum attractive rate of return is 10% raised to 10. That turns out to be $77,812. Plan B, let the uniform annual royalty payments be A. They are asking us to find annual sales volume. We will do that, but first we'll say how much money she should be getting through royalties, right? Because we are trying to equate the money values in both the cases. So we'll figure out the money, and from that we'll figure out the units. Let that annual royalty payments be A. Then the future worth of this option is the annually she would be getting $1,000 for sure, right? Regardless of how many units are sold, she gets $1,000 plus based on how many units sold, some A, right? That is her annual income as a result of this product. Cool. And projected to the future for 10 years. And for Nadine to be indifferent between the two contracts, the two future values must be the same. Whether she are the future value of A or future value of B, they both must be exactly the same. And so mathematically, we'll try to equate these two things, and then it's just a matter of some algebra. And that turns out to be $3,882.36. Cool. But then they want us the volume. Okay, piece of cake. If the money she should get 3,882 through royalties, how many units? What is the unit price? 50 cents. If one unit is 50 cents, how many should she sell so that she would get 3,882? Well, total money divided by the unit price gives you the number of units. And that is approximately 7,765 units. Cool. I like that problem. That's a nice one. Okay. Tempura Incorporation is considering two projects. Project A requires an investment of 50,000, estimated annual receipts for 20 or 20,000, estimated annual costs are this, and alternative project this. Anyway, so all of that stuff is plan. Option A, this is the cash flow diagram, and option B, this is the cash flow diagram. Okay. Pause the video if you need to and compare the two, all of this. Or trust me, I'm a doctor. All right, future worth of this. Well, uh, we'll take this guy, minus 50,000, and project it to the forward. And these annual things, find the future value of the annual, subtract from that the initial investment, initial cost, and that turns out to be 58,078. Future worth of B, doing a similar analysis, turns out to be negative 2947, right? What is the, I'm curious. This is 20 minus 12,5 is 7,500. This is 10,000. So even though this is only earnings of 7,500, whereas in option B, the earnings is 10,000, right? So it looks just based on receipts, how much money you're making every year, option B is good. But the problem is this initial investment, right? The 75,000 is the one that is killing it and causing it to be this one. And what is interesting is if the number of years is not 20, it is much more than that, right? Let's say 40 years. I'm curious, right? In that case, quite possibly, future worth of B would be bigger than the future worth of A. So it is a function of the planning horizon. That's something to think about. Anyways, future worth of A is bigger than 0, so that's a positive thing. So option A should be recommended. Cool. Then, the final thing, portfolio analysis. This is an interesting concept. You need to wake yourself up and try to get an understanding of this one. Definition: a portfolio analysis is the value of an entire portfolio of investments, including the money in the investment pool. Okay, what? The concept of investment pool is interesting. There's something called investment pool. If initial cost of plan A is say $100,000, while of plan B is $60,000, we should recognize that the difference, 100,000 minus 60,000 equals $40,000, is called the residual capital, will earn a return equal to the minimum attractive rate of return. What? Okay, let me explain that. You have this investment pool. That means as a company, you have decided, hey, we are going to spend $100,000. Okay, that's a guarantee. Uh, how are we going to spend that $100,000? Well, Plan A is there's this project which expects us to spend $100,000. We could do that project. Or there's a plan B which expects us to pay initially only 60,000. However, with that 60,000, when they made a decision to spend 100,000, there is a difference, right? 100,000 minus 60,000. That 40,000 is called the residual capital. You don't just take that residual capital and just put it aside. No, no, no. You will invest it in whatever gives you your minimum attractive rate of return. That is the initial idea. And what is equally important to know is even if you do not choose to do plan A or plan B, there is the do nothing option. What do you do in the do nothing option? Do nothing option is doesn't necessarily mean do absolutely nothing. Do nothing means you will invest $100,000 in whatever gives you the minimum attractive rate of return. It is not, you're not storing that money under the bed. No, 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 no. You are investing it in something that gives you the minimum attractive rate of return. The only question is, should you invest in plan B where you invest 60,000 and the remaining 40,000 you invest in what gives you more? Or should you spend all of 100,000 on plan A? That is what is left. But there are three options. The do nothing option is also something that you need to consider. Cool. Now let's work one problem that captures this perfectly. Plan A requires an initial investment of $300,000 and it earns $55,000 per year for 10 years. Plan B requires an initial investment of $450,000 and it earns $80,000 per year for 10 years. Since any consideration of these two plans implies a sum of $450,000 being available, that is the investment pool, a third do-nothing plan is available in which this $450,000 could be invested. And earning, find the future worth of three more, making sure the residual capital as an investment. All investments have a minimum attractive rate of 10%, including the do-nothing as a minimum attractive rate of return of 10%. Cool. We'll analyze three different options: do nothing, plan A, and plan B. Note that in all three options, we will incur an initial cost or an investment of $450,000, right? And the difference is as follows between those three plans. In option do nothing, all of the 450,000 will be invested in whatever is traditional for the firm, and the investment will earn a minimum attractive rate of 10% with that. That's option one. In option plan A, 450 of the $450,000, a sum of 300,000 is invested in plan A that earns $55,000 per year, and the residual capital, there is a residual capital here of 150,000, and that is invested by the usual minimum attractive rate of return. Okay? And in plan B, option plan B, uh, all of that $450,000 is invested in plan B. And that earns $80,000 per year, and the residual capital is just zero, right? You have 450,000 available, and you are spending all of that for this plan. Cool. All right. Now, notice something. In these calculations, in the future worth calculations, our objective is to do a comparison. We're clear about this. We are doing a comparison of these three plans. In every one of these plans, please pay attention to this. In every one of these plans, there is a minus 450,000 at t equals 0. Would you agree? There is a minus 450,000 in every plan. And because of that, we will not add minus 450,000, project it to the future or anything like that, because all three options have that as a negative. So that's not useful to use for comparison. So in our comparison future worth calculations, we will not use that minus 450,000. Cool. All right. Now we'll look at all the positives only. The do nothing would be a straightforward positive. Did I lie? I said we will not use 450,000. But what's up with this minus 4, the 450,000 plus times 1 plus? That is simply the future value of this one, right? It is understood that minus 450,000 is done at the beginning, but it's going to give you this in the future. So that turns out to be this amount. And the future worth of A is the project is 55,000. You'll get 55,000 every year. Project it to the future by this by multiplying by this factor. And the remaining 150,000 in the pool, right? That is invested at minimum attractive rate of return. So that's going to fetch you some money. So we need to take the residual capital and figure out the future value. The residual is not quite 450. It's only 150. So find the future value of this and also look at how much money you are receiving every year for 10 years. So add that, and that gives you a future value of 1,265,619. A similar analysis with future worth of B. There's only one thing. You've already spent the 450,000. So we're not using minus 450,000 blah blah for this one. Okay. Um, uh, Minus 450,000. So if we do this, we get 1,274,993.97. So um, my wife is calling me. Clearly, plan B must be chosen since it has the highest future worth, right? A very good analysis. All righty. Amigos y amigas, adios.